Thank you, Bill, for telling me. But I have a full 45-minute video of me explaining all of this. So you can email me at Shivali at Tech, and I can send you that video if you didn't make it to the first video. Sorry about that. Okay, so resumes. So this is my resume that I made using the C4IO extension. And let's break this down. So I think every good resume should obviously have the basics, your name, the contact information you check the most. You need to make sure that this is an email you're not getting a lot of spam things from, because the amount of times that I've seen that, I've applied on something like Chegg or like Indeed and I've gotten a response and I didn't realize it because of the amount of emails I have, that happened to me a lot in the beginning. So make sure that it's something, an email that you're constantly, clearing out and looking into. And then I highly recommend putting a website if you're applying for a tech, engineering, or design role. So for me, I have my GitHub account. And in a lot of my interviews, I've actually had people pull up my GitHub account and talk me through the project I worked on. So it's really, really important, and it's an easy way to like show them the projects that you've worked on. GitHub is completely free, and it's push your code. Um, and like allow them to see all the files and the code that you've written, which is really convenient. Then in the upper right hand corner, I have my education. So I know that a lot of us in this call have probably taken a lot of APs and honors classes. And although that's great, not I, just because I took AP World History does not mean I have to put it on here because it has nothing to do with CS or business. So make sure that you are selective when it comes to your coursework. So for me, I put my main engineering coursework and then just some miscellaneous societies which support my love for engineering. Um, don't put courses that you are like they're not really relevant to the jobs you're applying to. So for me, like if I'm applying for like a partnerships role, I'll actually put like things like honors English because like that just indicates I know how to write. Um, and then also because you're in high school, you have the option of not putting your GPA. I don't recommend putting it if it hurts you. You have to put it in college, but if it hurts you in any way, I just don't recommend doing it. You're generally safer than not for putting. Then the main thing of your resume is your experiences. So I'm going to be talking this a lot more in the next slide, but these are mainly your extracurricular activities, so the things you would put on LinkedIn. And most importantly, these are my three main tips when it comes to writing these and talking about the things you've done. So first and foremost, quality over quantity of experiences. This is not the common application or the easy application where you have 10 to 20 spots to put in information. You want to put the most important things on your resume because again, they take 7 seconds to look at it. They are not going to look over 10 activities. But also, if you put 10 activities, it really doesn't show depth about you and your skill set. So you really want to make sure you're honing in on the activities. I personally recommend putting 5 to 6 that really reveal a lot about you and that you exhibited the most amount of skills relating to the job that you're applying to in. I really also recommend showing your impact. So I'm a high school debater. I debated for around 3 years of high school. I did varsity PF, if anyone wants to know. And something my partner and I, basically the way that debate works is that there are two sides, and basically one person will read the argument and be like, cats are better than dogs because of this. And if we like dogs, this amazing thing will happen. And then we'll say the exact opposite pretty much. And then after we say our arguments, there's a thing called crossfire. And something my partner and I loved doing was calling out people who didn't tell me, who didn't quantify their impact. So if you say yes to this many people will die. And what we did was, is that in our the rest of our speeches was that we assumed that if they didn't quantify it, the amount of people that were being impacted was one. And that's the way you want to go about this. So like if I said something like mentored girls at a hackathon, okay, I'm gonna assume there's one, but you're probably looking at me like, Shivali, there was more than one. You have to paint the picture for them because again, they have 7 seconds, and numbers are a really good way to show the amount of impact that you've made. You also definitely want to be using action verbs. If you're ever struggling to come up with a verb, literally just Google the verb synonym resume. That's what I always do, and it ends up working out pretty well. Um, yeah. So for awards slash skills, I definitely want to still add skills to my resume. This will probably be like coding languages and softwares you've used for skills. Please do not put things like communication or leadership. These can be conveyed by your descriptions, and if you have to write them, you're not conveying them enough. So only write about the actual skills that you can apply, whether that's coding languages, softwares, things like that. That's what you should really put in your skills category. Awards, I don't think are 100% necessary on a resume, but for me, I just have them because I have the space. And so you can lump them together. Like I know a lot of people lump their debate awards together, but I recommend putting them in the order of prestige and just selectivity. So, for example, I put my business pitches at the top to show that I was a really strong um, business student. And so, yeah, that's my resume for you. So, I'm sure there's no, do they test your skills for you when you get the job? I think that varies job to job, honestly. Um, like for me, when I did my state squad internship, definitely because she just kind of was like, okay, I want to redesign this. Can you make me a wireframe and then can you code it? And so definitely like yeah, in that case I did have to. For Verizon, we have to make the site next week, so that's probably where the web development skills that I exhibited on my resume are going to be um, things. But for SRI, they did actually test me. So like what that interview looked like was that basically they had my GitHub open and they just started asking me questions about like what the code I had written, and then got into a series of questions like, oh, what's a more effective way of like arranging things, or like what would I need to do to like print the last 10 um, items of an array in the most effective way possible. So like I didn't expect this, honestly. Like I didn't expect to be like asked coding questions on the spot, but it's definitely something that I think if you're applying for something as dense as research, you should be prepared to. I hope that answers your question. Um, but yeah, don't feel like you can't apply if you don't have any skills. I didn't have any skills really on my first internship. I think it really comes down to like you. They know you're in high school. They know you're not going to be like this some magnificent coder who can do it all. Like they don't even expect that of college students. So like you will be fine. Just try your best on building your skill set, um, and pitch yourself, because at the end of the day, you should be applying to jobs that even if you're not 100% qualified for. Okay, let's talk about resume description. So these are just things I have on LinkedIn. So obviously they're a lot more dense and lengthy, but this one is actually on my resume. And so here are my biggest tips beyond just quantifying your impact. And the first one is to reveal a new skill with every line. You don't want to repeat any skills that you've already exhibited. So for example, I was editing my friend's common extracurricular list, and every single extracurricular of hers said she coded a website. And I'm like, great, but you've already said that literally 10 times. Like, make sure that you are really highlighting the skills that show that you are a dimensional, person in computer science or engineering or whatever field you want to go into. So for me, I also recommend doing it in the format of impact calculus. So what you did specifically, not your team, you specifically, because it's your name on this resume. Like, how did that impact something? So for me, I think that I did this pretty well in these two um, lines. So I said, marketed community Slack to build a network of 2,700 girls worldwide. Now, what do I think this description is missing? Probably the way that I market it, but it really does show at the baseline that, hey, what did I do? I marketed the Slack. What was the impact of that? I connected 2,700 people. I think this is also conveyed by this description, where I talked about how I organized virtual conferences with 3,600 attendees from 46 states and 75 countries, with 98% of attendees leaving more interested in STEM. So if we break that down, I organized these conferences, and the impact was that a lot of people came, but not only that, a lot of people from geographically diverse locations came. But not only that, it was actually impactful, and that 98% of people left more interested in STEM. And so you really want to show your stuff. And as you can see, the numbers really help paint the picture. Because I could have just said worldwide here, or like with or just like many attendees leaving more interested in STEM. But it's really important to quantify it and show your reach as well as the amount that you have really accomplished. And it's okay if it's only 2% or 3%. Remember, your baseline is 1%. If you've impacted more than one person, it matters. And I also really don't recommend using things like dramatically, thousands, and extremely, because again, these are really vague and they don't paint the picture really well. If you read all of these, you can really tell like how I did these things. And I think that doing things like increased app downloads dramatically, like what does that mean? You know, that could be like 1,000 app downloads, or you could be hyping yourself up, and that could really be five. So like, be honest, really show your stuff, and avoid using those things because they're super big. Cool. No other questions. Oh, I don't know why this isn't showing. Okay, well, basically what I was supposed to talk about in this slide is to organize. So I recommend creating a table on OneNote. Um, OneNote is a really versatile tool, and the way that you should go about this is, first and foremost, you should have like the company name, their organization, the job description role. You really want to be detailed when it comes to this because let me see if I can make it pop up. I don't know why it's not working because it's really annoying. I can send you all this. I don't know why it's not. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay, we're just gonna skip over this slide. I don't know why it's not working. But in general, making a spreadsheet towards like coming up with like things that you want to include in like your cold emails or your applications is really helpful. I will send you guys the table that I use through email. But how do you find internships? Well, shameless plug, but we actually have a mailing list, tinyurl.com/GG mailing, where we feature around like 3 to 4 internships every week. So I highly recommend joining that. It's completely free and we don't spam. We really email once a week. If you are a girl interested in tech, I highly recommend joining the Built by Girls Way program because you not only get connected with a female in the tech and business industry, but also a lot of my friends have gotten referrals through their advisors. And generally, advisors work at companies like Amazon Web Services, Uber, Stripe. My advisor is working at Pinterest. So that's really beneficial. But even if you can't get a referral, your mentor can help you adjust your resume and talk about securing internships in general because they are someone who has worked in the industry. I also recommend doing this thing that I like to call LinkedIn stalking because for me, I was looking for like a really good engineering program to be a part of. And I remember going on someone's LinkedIn and seeing that they did this UC Berkeley program ran by the Society of Women Engineers. And I found out about this program, which was honestly really amazing. I loved it. And it was a free program where for 3 hours every week, I got to go to UC Berkeley and work with undergraduate students on learning about different UC Berkeley engineering majors, talking with professors, and working with projects with mentors from the industry. And so this was a completely free program that I did not even know existed until I looked on someone else's LinkedIn. So if you have try to find people who have similar interests in you. This is a really great way to find internships also because of coronavirus. A lot of the places where they've interned are now most likely accepting remote interns. So it's okay to shoot your shot. And I really recommend doing that. If you're really struggling, I really recommend using things like Chegg, Indeed, and Simba.io. For Simba.io, you do have to take a test before you can even get into the internship matchmaking process, which is a little intimidating, but some of my friends said it wasn't that hard. So that is something to keep in mind. I also recommend using things like RoundPeer because they do post a lot of internship opportunities on there from really small businesses. So this is my cold email template that I used to get my paid research internship at Sorry, that got postponed. So let's break this down. You obviously want to start out by introducing yourself and saying the grade you are, where you're located, basic information. And right off the gate, you want to tell them what you're interested in. This goes back to the why you were interested in this internship. And that's something you put on your spreadsheet. And then you really want, from that first step of why do you want this internship and what do you want to do? This is where you're going to put all that information and where you want to do it. So that's the reason why I emphasize and making that Google Doc and adjusting that on that spreadsheet because, you know, it makes writing these emails so easy. And then this is, I believe, the most important part of the email, which is the why do you want to intern and the peek into why you're good for it. So if you're applying for a research internship, you need to read one of their papers. You need to address it specifically with the title, the year that it was published, and read the paper and talk about what you understood. Because, and if you genuinely don't like the research paper, don't email them because honestly, they won't respond. And it's really obvious if you don't understand um, the paper. So make sure you're trying to read the paper, give it a try, and explain what it piques your interest and why their research is interesting to you. And it shouldn't be for like a basic reason like, oh, like I like CS, so I like your research. Like that's super vague and that's something that can be copy and pasted into any other email. You really want to personalize this. And then at the end, just shoot your shot, say what type of project you want to work on. This is kind of going to be like the brief glimpse into your resume. So for me, I did this according to like CS and tech majors. So definitely putting relevant coursework um, and software slash coding skills. You don't want to mention any extracurricular activities. If you've done research in the past, this is the perfect place to mention it. But remember that you are attaching your resume. Like you don't need to write an essay. And then lastly, just with like a few closing sentences. So my biggest takeaway from this is to personalize these emails. You should not be able to send the same exact email to every single professor or company. But also, these are not essays. They should be short, concise emails because, these companies and labs get these emails probably every day. Be straight to the point on why you're a good applicant. And again, paint the picture for them because they're more likely to not respond to you. So that's super important. I also recommend scheduling your emails for 8 a.m. on Mondays. That generally does really well. Um, and also, if you're finding people to email, I honestly don't recommend emailing like top 20 schools because it's extremely hard to get research there. In getting research at state schools and labs in your area is actually a lot easier, and you have a higher chance of being paid if that is something that's important. I'm just making sure there's no questions. So, what now because of COVID-19? Well, I'm going to be saying that research is most likely just not a possibility, especially if it's tech or science related, just because schools and labs are closed. I honestly don't recommend doing like tech or science research online. That's something that a lot of people told me was pretty much a waste of time because you literally didn't get to learn anything. So I know it's unfortunate, but there's always next summer, and it's okay. But what you can do instead is emailing startups in your area. Because COVID-19 doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon, everyone is going to continue to need help during this time. And all the small businesses are suffering. So if you email a company being like, hey, I'll make your website for free, they're way more inclined to say yes to you right now. So take advantage of that to help you. And also, I just wanted to throw that out there that rejection is normal. I sent 100 emails before getting one yes to make my dream project. Like, it's okay if you get rejected. It really means nothing about you. Honestly, sometimes you're just not like a right good fit for the program. That's okay, and it's important to recognize that. I know that imposter syndrome is really real, especially if you live in the Bay Area. That, oh my God, all these people are like interning at Stanford. Like, it's okay. Everybody has their own path, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to intern at a really cool company to be successful. If you have an internship, these are my main biggest tips. The first is to ask questions and bring ideas to the table. I think that over communicating is super important when it comes to remotely. So if you really don't understand the assignment, it's not like you can just hop over to the desk and ask them. You have to make that clear from day one. And it's really important to like make sure that you are asking questions so that you can try to learn the most that you can during this time. Also ask for extensions if needed. I think a lot of people are intimidated by people who they work with. Um, If you need an extension, it's okay. But for me, for example, my research internship was during A/B testing. So like some of the meetings I would have to be late to because of my APs. And so I just let my supervisor know he's totally okay with it. And so the way that I like to go about extensions is always turn in something rather than nothing. So be like, hey, I've worked on the project this far. This is what I've accomplished, but I think I'm going to need more time to finish it. This way, they're more inclined to give you an extension because you've already told them that you've done work. You've already started on the project, and this is what you've done already with the time you were given, and you need this much time to finish off and accomplish this. And also ask for how you can improve. Getting on a coffee chat or emailing your professor if that's something that you're more comfortable with to see what you can do better in the work you're producing. I also strongly recommend finishing stuff early and mixing really happy. So these are my biggest takeaways. The first and foremost is to believe in yourself. Okay, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will, and that's so true because you are pitching yourself in these cold emails, and you have to be confident about what you know. You also want to personalize your applications and emails to the companies and job roles. You can also do this to resumes. Sometimes I'll reorder my resume experiences accordingly if I'm applying to something more specific. You want to make sure that it's not a copy and paste thing you can send everywhere. Quantify your impact, paint the picture for them. Remember that it takes 7 seconds for someone to reject you. You don't want to give them any time to interpret. You also want to email startups for better luck, not Google or Facebook. They're just more inclined to accept help. And make sure to put time and effort into this job. This isn't a CC class you're taking for a GPA boost. This is something you're doing to genuinely. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming to my presentation. I'll have the next around 5 minutes for questions since I have another panel to do. But you guys should follow Girl Genius on Instagram. You can also sign up for our free workshops um, at our Instagram. And if you are a girl in tech or STEM, you can join our Slack. We have around 2,800 people there now. We post opportunities on a daily basis. And if you have any questions, so if you need me to look up your resume, your cold email, anything, shoot me an email. I will be more than happy to do that for you. But thank you all for coming. How do you find startups in your area, and how do you know the owner's contact information? Well, I really recommend honestly using LinkedIn for that. A lot of people put their email in their LinkedIn and contact information section. So if you find that is super cool and like a startup in your area, I think that in your area it's kind of like not necessarily needed anymore because of coronavirus. And so that's the way that I found a lot of my emails. But also I would just kind of like email any um, like info at or just like it's better to always email like a person who works at the company because they can leave you. What do you mean by is this method applicable for any type of course? Like the cold emailing method, the resume, like, I would like for you to elaborate so I can know. Also, again, I'm just going to throw this in there. This is my email. You can shoot me an email if you have any other questions, if you want to get on a coffee chat. This is my calendar to set up a call with me if you want to ask me further questions. I'll wait around 1 more minute, and if there's no other questions, I will move. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I really had a fun time presenting. Like I said, that's my email and that's my calendar. Just shoot me anything. You're not really wasting my time. I'd love to help you out with your resume or just anything in general. But yeah, have a nice day, guys. Bye.